founder, Pristine Consultant Private Limited. Vittal is a assurance and consulting expert and trainer for the past 25 years. Vittal is the member of RBI Standing Committee for Cybersecurity and IT Examination and member of RBIT's Cybersecurity Assessment Framework Study Group. Welcome, Mr. Vittal.
Okay.
Our next guest is Mr. Ashish Khushu. He is Chief Technology Officer in L&T Technology Service and drives the company's technology roadmap to develop IPs, platforms, and solutions to address emerging strategies, high growth investment areas in digital engineering, and also drives the innovation charters for the company. Ashish has around 30 years of experience spanning technical and non high performance computing, enterprise computing, and product engineering services. Welcome, Ashish. This session will be moderated by Ms. Priya Madhavan. Priya Madhavan has about 26 years of IT service industry experience. For the past 7 years, she has been focusing on cybersecurity. Currently, she is working as a consultant with NASSCOM FutureSkills, focusing on building cybersecurity skills for the country. Over to you, Priya.
Thank you so much, Ravani. And thank you so much, panel, for taking the time off for this session. So as Ravani just gave an introduction, so the point that we're going to be discussing today is what's the role that the security professionals need to play in this digital transformed world or digitally transformed world. So everywhere we see digital transformation, be it digital transformation across industries, be it engineering industries, be it product industries, be it user companies, we see digital transformation everywhere, right from the high-end, autonomous type of cars with 5G kind of thing becoming in place, to as simple as our fruit vendor having a online payment, having a payee or a Google Pay on his cart to help us pay money using digital. So digital transformation has a cut across the way we think, the way we operate our everyday life, and this is across individuals, across the country, across the nations also. And we see digitization happening big way in India through various innovative solutions that India is picking up. So I would like to start this discussion first with Ashish. Ashish comes from the engineering services. And what exactly, Ashish, do you see the impact in your industry because of digital transformation? Are you seeing a completely different role that people need to play in security in the digitally transformed environment? Over to you, Ashish.
Thank you, Priya. Just so that people know what industry I come from. L&T Technology Services caters to requirements that are there in companies which are doing product engineering, manufacturing, process industries, industrial products, oil and gas, chemical companies, transportation companies, etc., etc. And we tend to address requirements which are in that part of the organization, which is either designing new products or digitizing their operations. So that's a perspective that we bring to the table, which is very different than the enterprise computing that one always sort of associates security with. So what we see is as follows, 3 points. One is that to think that these industries didn't have software and were not automated and were didn't have the latest technologies is incorrect. They were always ahead in terms of automation, robotics, embedded software, etc., etc. What's changing is that they're getting connected. A lot of products and a lot of plants, a lot of operations are getting connected to the ecosystem of stakeholders or the rest of the plants. So that's the first profound change that is happening. Now, the second change that intersects with this is that any product or operation that has a digital pulse or a digital heartbeat will have software sitting on it, which means that when you're connecting these products or you're connecting these plants or you're connecting the operations, they are going to talk to each other based on software. So there will be a lot of intersection in terms of communication, data exchange, etc., etc. I don't want to get into the detail of that, but that's the second big change that's happening. And the third most profound change that we need to understand, especially with the context of this forum, is as follows. Security is not about antivirus, anti-spam, etc., etc. It's very profound. It's far more deeper. It's far more interesting, and it's a far bigger challenge than people actually think it to be. Given the nature of business, a large number of people think that when I do antivirus, anti-spam, or I do email security, or I have an intrusion detection system, etc., etc., I take care of security. No, that's not the case. Security in products, manufacturing organizations, connected plants, connected cars, connected planes, connected anything is a very deep topic, very profound topic, and most critical. You cannot have connectivity, you cannot have software not being talked in the same breath with technology, which gets involved in the implementation of security. So I think these are the three profound changes that, with respect to that forum, I would like to share is what we are seeing in this domain.
Thank you so much. I think it was very well put. Now going over to Shailaja. Shailaja, you are in the product area. SAP is known for its products. Now, with the digital transformation, the earlier life cycle of either 6 months or 9 months is not the timeline that people are looking for products to come out. They want the products out at a much shorter life cycle. So given this, this is one aspect of it. Probably you could address other aspects in the digital transformation area in your product sector. So what do you think are the roles that is changing for security folks in the product space?
Yeah, thank you, Priya, for having me in the first place. And it's really a great privilege to be on the panel with all of our panelists today. And quickly getting into your question, that I just would like to transform the question into two parts. We definitely know digital transformation like cloud computing and a sophisticated threat landscape are forcing everyone to rethink the functions of each role on the security teams. And we all will also definitely agree, like from the previous year to the current year, the things have changed drastically at a phase where no one have even imagined or thought in the security domain as well. And when we look into this entire roles that we have in front of us, right, I have to start from the CISO to an engineer role, because everyone plays a very important role in this. And here we also have to understand, with the pandemic, it has brought in a lot of challenges onto the table, and it's the need of the hour. Like each and every CISO has to relook into the security posture they have, and the CISO is not just being part of the boardroom discussions, but influences business decisions and directions. And at the same time, an effective CISO also have to act good while they have to also think about the bad, and they have to act smart while they have thinking about the worst. And the role is also so transforming. Like earlier, anyone can play the role of a CISO, but with all of these challenges, when you have such a broad product portfolio, right, and we also want to go and grab the entire piece of market, be it a cloud or be it IoT or whatever, we also have to ensure we have the CISOs who are representing the entire security of your organization. Their roles also have to be transitioned from management to technical and also more strategic. Yeah, we have to also be looking into the strategy aspects of security, and also they are just not limited to influencing budgets, because every time whenever we go to any panel, any forum, we keep hearing like the companies are not giving enough budgets for security. I think with this pandemic, that's not going to be the key aspect on the portfolio. But for sure, we also have to play a huge game at boardroom, starting from acquisitions, portfolios in a nutshell. The CISOs have to be better aligned with businesses. And when you look into the other aspects, right, you also rightly mentioned the life cycles are drastically shrinking. shrinking to an extent like earlier we used to have yearly shipments or once in a 6 months, but now it is also coming to months and also to days. It is also really important for all of us to bring all of these teams together to work as one team. And because it is also important why all of them have to work together is when we look into this entire security, right, we all definitely know this is starting from governance to operations. So each function works as part of the whole security team within the organization, which is part of the larger security community. And we all have to understand defending against the same adversaries. Maybe let me just not explain each and everything. Let's look into smaller concept like policy and standards. Earlier, when we are defining policies and standards for security or whatever, there is a team dedicatedly sitting on that who is responsible for coming up with policies and standards, be it a cloud or be it anything, or following a NIST framework or whatever frameworks we have around. But now it's the time the team who develops and approves and publishes the security policies and standards for or taking up any security decisions within the organizations and inspire the change they want to bring into this entire policies. The team also must take into account this cloud platforms, DevOps process and tools and relevant regulations among other factors. Maybe earlier they were not, working together as one team, but now this is the need. And moreover, bringing security and the development team and operations team together hand in hand, making them talk to each other and try to understand the volume of the problems that we have in front of us. Without, when we start working in silos, right, it's not going to help. And moreover, as I said, this is a kind of a strategy because security is also being involved right from the board decisions, right from the development. It's no more an afterthought. For sure, it has to be traversed right from the conceptual. When you are talking about thinking about a new business idea, right from the beginning of that, you have to integrate security. And at the same time, you also have to ensure all the people across this product life cycle are talking. The security team is very well involved at each and every phase, and all of these are collaboratively working together. And for sure, the roles also has to evolve. You can't stick and say that I'll be only doing this role or that role. But now this is also the need of the hour. The security teams also has to understand the business far more better, so that they also will try to help the teams to build security right from the concept, right from the governance phase to the operations, so that it's going to be a win-win to the entire organization. The more investments you do at the initial phases of any product development is what you're going to save those while you come up to the operations phase.
Super, wonderfully said, Shailaja, that security people cannot just limit themselves to say, I'm technical, I know how to use my security devices and be happy about it. They need to know the business functions also very important. And it is across the board and it has to start from the beginning and not an afterthought. Excellent points. I'd like to request Vittal to share his idea on how the roles are changing in the industry he belongs, BFS. Over to you, Vittal.
Um, Thank you so much, Priya. It's indeed my pleasure to be on the panel, and thanks for the invitation. Yes, I think to add to compliment whatever Ashish and Shailaja said, I think from the when it comes to money, obviously you have to come back to here. Wherever you go, it doesn't matter. So if you really look at digital transformation, I think this is one sector wherein digital transformation has been happening for quite some time. I'm sure all of us have been aware about internet banking for quite some time. We have been even reasonably aware about the smart banking or the selfie banking and kind of stuff. But there are two factors which have really pushed the industry really hard in these last about 1 year, if I can say. The first one is the fintechs. The fintechs have been really giving the banks a run for their money. I mean, I always say when elephants want to dance, the biggest problem today with public sector banks and large banks is they really don't see the future with all these fintechs the way that their agility is unmatchable. And the only thing is now they have agreed on saying, okay, we can't fight with you, you can't fight with us. So let's work together. So the biggest digital transformation that's happening is thanks to the collaboration between the fintechs and the large banks, wherein the banks have money and the fintechs have the market. So they are able to patch the two and bring in tremendous amount of benefits on both sides. So that's, I would think, is one of the most prominent. And thanks to the pandemic, what the pandemic has done is It is absolutely amazing. If you look at in fact, DACI figures, which I was just looking at one of the surveys, there's a 9 out of the 10 mobiles brought during this last about the pandemic season. The, the users are accessing native content in local languages. This is mind boggling. If 9 out of 10 is what you're meaning, which means you are looking at a surge of digital banking, which is going to, I think, only show itself in the future as we go by. I mean, let's look at it, how we have been dealing with digital banking. Many of us, other than, of course, the tech savvy of us who always say banking means digital banking. I have not seen my bank for ages. So that's one. But if you really look at how many of us have started paying simple electricity bills using mobile banking? Many of us never even attempted to do that because we are mindset to say, this is how I pay my electricity bills. This is how I'll go about doing, certain payments. So all that has changed. I think when you're locked with you and your mobile and you want to escape your spouse, the banking is best. So that's how it has been happening, if I can say. But then the good thing about this is if you really look at the entire technology is taking over, I would say, in a way, the banking workflow. And the only problem today is earlier, when it looked at cybersecurity in banking, it was my bank, this perimeter, this buildings, and this is my network. Now, as one of the banks have already said, the bank is in your pocket. You can imagine that we are breathing money now, right? Let's be clear. And we are breathing only richer. The air is only getting richer by the day. And hackers are the happiest guys, obviously. And if you see, the pandemic has shown that the kind of cyber attacks on banks, I mean, they are looking at endpoints because they know that people will be trying out first time banking. They know that officers would be working from home, do spear phishing, ransomware attacks, and all kind of stuff. So there is whole lot of change in both sides. If you really look at the entire ecosystem of how banking works, and they have been pushed to technology as the only means of survival. In fact, if you look at cybersecurity today, because of the digital banking push which has been happening, what's happened is that what in the industry, which I mean, RBI is one of the best regulators in the world when it comes to banking. But believe me, banks used to look at cybersecurity as a compliance tick. They are now certainly realizing, no, this is a survival issue. And that's what is changing the entire market. So I think I would leave it at that. Maybe we can have more discussion, but the very clear thing is we are looking at the complex of complex technologies. Digital driving to the power of cube is what's already happening. We could see with quantum computing and the AI and the autonomous, wherein things start banking. So that's going to be the mind-boggling change which we could see. And the biggest problem would be the platform of trust is going to be more shakier than ever. And that's where you'll find cybersecurity would be on top of everybody's mind. That's it for me.
Fantastic start, Vittal. Thank you so much. And you can't, I mean, your speech can't stress the importance of security in banking. So now we understand that the roles are kind of changing because of digital transformation across various sectors. So, what skills are relevant now? What are the additional skills people need to pick up so that they can perform the changed role in their environment? So, I'll start with Ashish.
I like to extend the fantastic argument that Vittal made. I am not so sure why people talk of security and software development in two breaths. I don't foresee an engineer in the future who does not go appear for an interview without knowing what security is all about. I think we need to just go back a few steps. And I'll take the example. I've had the fortune of working with some of these banks from a technology company perspective. When the build out happened of software, the software infrastructure build out happened. And at that moment in time, the threat perceived was not as high and serious. We were learning about that threat. Now, I think everybody has a fairly good idea about the complexity of threat. We may not have the solutions for the threat, but we know that this is how threat entry will happen. For example, banking, the end point from where you are accessing your money, that's a entry point. So you will never have a situation, never ever have a situation starting now or maybe in future, where there would be any software engineer who comes for an interview without even knowing what security is all about. It's intrinsic, absolutely intrinsic. When I talk to a software engineer for his skills, I don't ask him about, tell me how to draw a flow chart. I don't ask him that. I don't ask him, how do you compile? I want to look at the way he's thinking, what language proficiencies he has. Security is going to be intrinsic to the whole thing. So I think that needs to be fundamentally clear. You cannot segregate the two things at all. The difference will come in my view, and I could be totally wrong, in what Shailaja attributed, but in a slightly more sophisticated manner. The compliance requirement of security are not only at the product level, it is also at a process level and a larger architectural, organizational compliance perspective from a technology, process, and domain perspective. So what you need to know is not security, that is understood that you have to know, will be what is the type of compliance requirement or regulatory compliances a particular industry has. For example, if you're going to do security for a bank, let's say, for example, and I forgive me for the indiscretion. Well, somebody hacks my server and I lose a few lakhs or whatever, hoping the loss is that. It's not life critical. A security breach in an insurance company or my trading portal is not life critical. A security breach in a car or a medical device is life critical. Now, that's the type of specialization that will fetch you fortunes. What would it take for me to ensure that the security implementation in a plant where it could be a life-saving, in a medical plant or a medical device or an autonomous, many such life-critical functions, a breach cannot be a 99.999%. It ought to be as close to 100%. And I think that's where you go above security and you talk of what is the process plus standards plus the requirement of that particular domain. That is a specialization that would be expected on top of whatever you know. So I think the skills in security will move towards valuing people who bring that aspect to your repertoire and not the normal stuff. Normal stuff, you have to do it, which means that when you talk DevOps, you don't actually talk DevOps any longer. I mean, what's the point of talking DevOps? You talk Sec DevOps. Right from the day you are conceiving, put security inside it. Now, the reason we didn't do it earlier was we didn't know, but now we are wiser, right? So you start with not DevOps, you start with Sec DevOps and look at standards, compliances in conjunction with process. It cannot be that I know the standards, I know the compliance, to hell with the process. No. I think that's where it is going to go. I am fairly optimistic that this is the future, and it's happening in many ways. But I think it'll get completely mainstreamed, and you will see many people talking the same thing in 6 months or a year from now.
Thank you. I'll come back again on understanding how it can be made mainstream. Though what you're saying is like, yes, it's expected that every developer knows how to develop secure solution, but today I don't think it's still the case. But let's see how we can, enable that to happen. So over to you, Shailaja, to share your views.
Yeah, so I definitely resonate with the thoughts of Ashish, and that is also my dream, to see where people have that security mindset irrespective of the roles they play. For sure, that's the way moving forward, that we have to reach somewhere there. And we all also definitely know, like, these roles are daily changing and evolving. If you look into this entire security, right, normally we talk about people, process, and technology, where Ashish also rightly pointed out, traversing through all these three pillars. And whenever we look into this people aspect, right, we are still recruiting the same old kind of roles into the organization when it's coming to working on security and so on. Security, but people also should understand security roles must evolve to confront today's challenges. On the top, we have evolving cybersecurity threats, and traditional job descriptions are not going to take us anywhere. At the same time, the industry also has to understand we can procure tools and tools, so on and so forth, into the platform or into the organization. But if you don't have the right set of people tools definitely have certain limitations. So as Ashish also mentioned, right? For example, you have a tool to do a code scan. Let's just take one example. And then it is always throwing you a lot of false positives or versus true negatives, which is the most dangerous one. And here we also have to have people quickly on the ground who can quickly write and small, script or small lines of code into this particular tool and ensure that these things are not happening rather than blaming into the tool or asking the organization to deploy lots and lots of new tools. So people have to be at a place where they should be able to quickly come up with a small rule and then set into the existing tool to still run the process. And I would also definitely reiterate on the fact, right, security resilience, like what Ashish was also talking about. If I just have to name the term, resilience by design. When we have these architects, right, the architects also need to accept the new era of unpredictability and design accordingly. And as he said, this normally we talk as chaos engineering is a technique, like failing safe, is what we normally talk about in the security world as well. And exactly when we are looking into these engineers, right, depending on the sector they're working, for example, like aerospace and defense or automobile industry or healthcare industry, they have to also ensure this resilience requirements because fail safe connected pacemakers and autonomous vehicles means saving lives. Yeah. And all these aspects have to be embedded into the organization and also to the people who are working on different roles. So we cannot say like you're hiring a security engineer, but what about your architect? If your architect is not well equipped enough to think like he has to design the systems to fail safe pertaining to the industry, pertaining to the regulations they're working on, we're still not going to win this race for sure. And at the same time, as I also mentioned earlier, right, this continuous delivery models are requiring security teams to engage more closely during the business planning and application development to effectively manage cyber risks. The more you understand about how business is working, then only you'll be able to mitigate the risks that might come out of that particular process or a product that you're going to deliver it to the market. And let me just quickly touch base upon one of the new or something that we really look forward is posture management, right? From time to time, we always talk about the security posture. So security posture management builds on existing functions like vulnerability management and focuses on continuously monitoring and improving the security posture of the organization. But posture management is typically one of the largest changes because it supports decisions in many other functions using information that only recently became available because of the heavy instrumentation of cloud technology or whatever it can be. So we also have to have dedicated set of people looking into this posture management, looking into all the things that are flowing inside the organization. So we have to, as I said, we have to define roles and we also have to evolve the security roles on the need basis on the fly because pandemic had taught us a lot, and I think we have to take these lessons and build on the top of it and go on into this journey.
Interesting. Posture management was a nice thought. Over to you, Vittal, for your ideas.
Thank you. I think some brilliant thoughts, both from Ashish and Shailaja. I'm just going to build up on that. I always look at the way that we look at banking today is, I mean, let's be clear. How many of us, when we open the bank account, ask the bank, are you a safe bank? Is that not a very important question to ask? Now, the problem there is because we have always mindset of implied trust in a bank. But unfortunately, all that is changing. That's where you find some of the new age banks marketing themselves as cyber safe savings bank account. So, which means you're looking at the way that cyber security is transforming. And imagine at the back of this organization, the amount of work that needs to go into all this. I mean, it's like this. Traditionally, what has happened is whenever it comes to IT or security, they would say, oh, there is one EDP department or there is an IT department or there is a security department. I don't know what is all this. That's how used to it happen. Today, the hackers are making sure that they make you run faster and they really give you a kind of run for your money. How do they do that? I mean, you won't believe that an Indian illiterate hacker today in India earns, can you guess how much? A top line hacker earns 6 crores of rupees. If you want to go and look up the places like Jamtara, places in Rajasthan, Rajkot, places like Indore, there are specialized fraudsters. If you go to Jamtara, they are experts in credit card frauds. If you want to get experts in UPI frauds, go to Rajasthan. So we are looking at something which is kind of waking up this sleeping banking industry to say you better take your job seriously when it comes to security. In fact, the traditional problem has been with banking is that the business side has been completely cybersecurity agnostic. They say that's not something, all the nerdy stuff, I don't want to even look at it. But today, cybersecurity is, in fact, somewhere I think Shailaja or Ashish also said, it is like spoken English. I mean, you better know cybersecurity. I mean, doesn't matter what domain you are in. So there is a minimum amount of spoken English that you got to have. So there is a minimum amount of cybersecurity knowledge, which is relevant for your functional aspect that you need to know. Then there is a literature part of English. So we're here where you have come in the, the cybersecurity experts typically. So that is where you have the CISO's team and the whole lot of paraphernalia that goes into making up the cybersecurity team. But mind you, now research has become a part of your organization's cybersecurity setup. You got to continuously innovate because the hackers are innovating faster. So which means that you require those Shakespeare experts in English who need to continuously research on and find out how do I now make my bank better positioned, better trustworthy than another bank and market it out. So that is where I think the entire conversation is changing. In fact, traditionally what has happened, as Ashish rightly put it, for all that beautiful buildings that we see from outside, the strength lies in the foundation. And foundation today is trust in any relationship. When you shake a hand with somebody, prima facie, you don't presume that this person is going to trick me. But in cybersecurity, all that has changed. The hacker is there to trip you at every relationship. And that's what is bringing in huge demand for job roles in every aspect of, as Ashish rightly said, the IT, the way we thought about it, saying that, okay, now we have to market something called secure systems development life cycle. I mean, it's stupid. By default, there is nothing called as, we do cyber SDLC with security. You always say it's a retrofit. I mean, that's how you not work your life out, right? Whether it's a building or whether it's a kid, you also always bring in the trust factor first. So I think that is kind of forcing organizations to put up very clear thinking capabilities with regard to understanding what cybersecurity is with regard to my job. So that's the first part of it, which is change the complexion of where we are looking at awareness, and I would say little more than awareness, skill set relevant to my job. B, you're looking at positions on positions which are going to build up in specializations across cybersecurity. Today we have a CISO. Nobody wants to take a job of a CISO today because, every day when you go to sleep, you don't want to be waken up by a phone call, but you always will be. So you never get peace in your life. So CISO's job is the toughest today. And as more and more regulations are coming in, now you're looking at an expert who will look into IT regulations separately. You're looking at experts who understand privacy separately. The bill is in the parliament today. The day it becomes law, all hell will break loose across the banking sector because entire application architecture has to be reworked. So you're looking at huge kind of positioning with regard to privacy, cybersecurity, which is going to completely change. Look at the way that we do the transactions today. You just flip off a mobile and you want to buy, let us say, a refrigerator. You say, chick, 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 you are done. And the refrigerator is delivered to your home. In that one transaction, which you completed maybe in just a couple of minutes, can we imagine how many partners come in place to make that transaction happen? There is a Visa card, there's a MasterCard, your bank issuer who issues the credit card, then you have the merchant, then you have the delivery guy, then you have a whole lot of guys who actually connect on this entire chain. Now, when we look at cyber security, as cybersecurity will say, oh, your bank, we look at your security, tell me scope of work. I mean, forget about scope of work. Scope of work is actually lying in with your partners now. So unless and until you get your cybersecurity right across the chain, you are actually talking nonsense. because hackers, that's where they show you the mirror. So I think organizations are realizing that. Bankers are realizing. RBI is doing a wonderful job, I must say, with regard to educating. There is a tremendous amount of programs at the board level, at the tactical management level, and at the operational management level, which is happening. But let me tell you, in terms of the demands have started growing now, because the boards are realizing that we need specialized experts for every area of cybersecurity. Somebody who understands at a HR level how to train with regard to the level of the management on what kind of training and curriculum do I give on cybersecurity? How do I make sure that the whole lot, as Shailaja has already kind of spoken about, people specialization, process specialization, technology specialization, each of them, the skill sets are now completely different. And you require cybersecurity specialists for each of them, but not without understanding the other aspects. So that's where I stop. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we probably are just having about another 7 more minutes, I think, Shravani. So I think
Yes,
what
yes.
we came to know is like fundamental. You're saying like the way people think should change. It can't be that it can't be security is something I don't have to bother about. So with that being fundamental, from where should we start? Should the education kind of start at the school level, college? Start. Anybody can take it first.
Education. Yeah, sure. Vittal,
No,
please.
go ahead, Ashish. Go
No,
ahead.
no, please go ahead.
I've
Please
spoken
go.
much.
No, please go ahead.
No, this is a little dear to me, because whenever I get this opportunity to talk to kids and talk to the next gen, I mean, there is a big valley between this generation, if I can say, and that generation. They say, what do you mean by banking to go to a bank and open an account? I mean, this is stupid. Why should you want to go to a bank to open an account? So you're coming from kids who are by DNA, woven into the fabric of the digital. And that's the consumers of tomorrow. That's the hackers of tomorrow. That's the leaders of tomorrow. But mind you, even there, I have seen cybersecurity still miles away when it comes to how they look at their digital. So I think there is a whole lot of work to first evangelize on the need of basic cybersecurity as a society, which is a lot of work to be done there. Then comes the next thing of really, we talk about cybersecurity as some silo today. I mean, Ashish put it very rightly. You cannot segregate the soul and the body. When you are looking at engineering, cybersecurity for engineering comes along with that. You cannot segregate that. That's where, if you look at banking, where it is retail banking today, the way it is done because of the fintechs is completely different. And if you're going to say, as even Ashish said earlier in his talk, oh, I will look at antivirus, I will look at anti-spyware, I think you are talking nonsense, because the hacker likes it. He says, wonderful, thank you so much. So I think that is where the conversation is, because as banks start falling apart, you had last year a 112-year-old cooperative bank just falling into pieces in 5 hours. And thanks to the hackers who over 28 countries within a matter of 4 hours took away all their money, and all remotely sitting elsewhere. So what are we looking at when we say cybersecurity today? I think there is a lot of knowledge that needs to go into that space. So that is where you're looking at HR specialists who will really train people to understand that. Courses which academia has to done, wherein the biggest problem today is the banking industry to academia connect India is far from what it needs to be. And that is very unlike from the way that the West works, wherein they work very closely with academia. The academia wants to help. They don't know how to figure out what you need in the industry. The industry is looking for people, and I can't understand why you can't look to the academia and join hands to say, come on, let's work together. There are only very few banks who work with the academia, who work with incubation centers, wherein they incubate a lot of these fintechs. But I think there's a big gap to really look at. Innovation in cybersecurity has to be on top today. You just can't go away from that, because the kind of technologies are coming in. I think there's a whole lot of knowledge that needs to really get into every sphere of the management levels across the organization. Thanks.
Wonderfully summarized. Ashish. Ashish, you're
I
speaking.
think Vittal has covered many things. There is where do you start is a very difficult, not a very straightforward answer, because there are multiple dynamics to the whole thing, right? There are multiple. I mean, it's an onion with which needs to be sliced. Uh, uh, Parallel efforts are happening and will continue to happen. There is education, no doubt. There is awareness. There is awareness. There is education. There is academia. There is research. This government of India. There is yourself. That is the industry. So I think there is no one magic formula that overnight it will happen. It's got to do with the factor of trust. It's got to do with an approach, it's got to do with knowledge, and it's got a very wide spectrum. So I think it's started, it's happening. Of course, it can always be better. It can always be better and it can always be more. But the good thing is that it started. There are many academic institutes who are investing a lot. There are many companies who are participating. There are many startups coming in security. So there is a multiple parallel, parallel activities happening, and hopefully in another couple of years you will have a far more thriving interlock, intercommunication, collaboration, etc., which will happen. So I think faster the better, but at least no one single person can do it. No one single person can do it. Almost all the stakeholders, right from consumer bodies, customer service providers, all have a role to play here. Is all I can say.
Yeah. To sum this up, maybe I just want to sum up what Vittal and Ashish mentioned. It's a need of the hour where each and everyone, the industry, the academia, and the government organizations, all of them have to come together hand in hand and work towards sensitizing everyone, starting from the kids to all generations, because everyone is so digitized, as we also know. Everyone is having a handheld device and totally lost into that. So it's the need of the hour. We have to sensitize the entire citizens, starting from all age groups, because even a kid of 2 year old is also sitting with his mobile phone because parents also wants to engage them in a way so that they don't come and bug them up when they're working. So to whatever extent we could do, I think now we can't talk about which age and what factor. Everyone has to be sensitized to an extent, like they know how to protect their own self and to be resilient about this entire ecosystem that we are living on.
Super. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the panel. Just to summarize, I would say that yes, roles are changing because of digital transformation. It is making us look back. It's like making security guys not be siloed. They have to know multiple things in addition to knowing security. And security is just not limited to technology. It is across process, people, and technology. It's everything put together is when an individual will be able to play a befitting role in the digitally transformed environment. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time. Really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, panelists, for the excellent session on what industry expects. Thank you, Priya, for moderating the session beautifully. So, dear audience, there are more exciting sessions ahead. So, stay tuned. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
A
you.
pleasure.